Some places in the world carry a curse so strong, the land itself seems to mourn. From ancient fortresses to abandoned islands, the shadows of the past linger, telling tales of suffering, tragedy, and untold secrets. Tonight, we explore 6 of the most cursed locations on Earth, where the spirits of the past refuse to rest. These are the stories of places steeped in dark history, where every step echoes with the voices of those who came before. Are you ready to face the dark past that still haunts these cursed places? In the arid landscape of Rajasthan, India, surrounded by jagged hills and thick desert winds, lies the crumbling ruin of Bangor Fort, a place so haunted, so feared, that it is legally forbidden to remain there after nightfall. A government sign stands at the entrance, stark and clear: no entry after sunset or before sunrise. But what ancient force lingers within those stones, whispering through the passageways and watching from every dark corner? The legend begins in the 16th century, during the rule of a prosperous kingdom. At its heart was the exquisite Princess Ratnavati, whose beauty was said to be unrivaled in all of India. Princes, warriors, and nobles journeyed from faraway lands, hoping for a glimpse of her and the chance to win her favor. Among those infatuated was a tantric, a practitioner of black magic named Singya. Unlike the others, he harbored not admiration, but obsession. Knowing he could never win her love through charm or valor, he turned to sorcery. One day, he enchanted a bottle of perfume he knew would reach the princess, whispering dark incantations over it. The spell would make her fall madly in love with him. But fate intervened. As the princess held the vial, she sensed something wrong. Some say she was warned by a court mystic, others claim she simply felt the spell's unnatural presence. With swift judgment, she hurled the bottle away. It shattered against a nearby boulder, and the black magic rebounded. The boulder rolled down and crushed Singya, mortally wounding him. As he lay dying, Singya screamed his final curse: "All who dwell in Bangor shall perish. None shall live in peace. The city will fall, and love shall never bloom within these walls again." The curse unfolded with terrifying precision. Not long after, Bangor was attacked by a rival kingdom. In a single brutal night, the entire city was massacred. The fort, once filled with music, color, and life, was reduced to ashes and silence. And Princess Ratnavati was never seen again. Some say she died defending her people. Others believe her spirit was trapped within the ruins by the same curse meant to ensnare her heart. Centuries passed, but the fort never recovered. Villagers who tried to settle nearby suffered strange illnesses, accidents, and disappearances. Entire families abandoned their homes overnight. Paranormal investigators today report intense feelings of dread, cold spots in the blazing desert heat, and equipment failures the moment they cross the threshold. Witnesses claim to see the ghost of a woman in royal dress, gliding silently through the broken halls, her eyes hidden behind a translucent veil. Some hear her weeping. Others say she calls out names of people who aren't there, or haven't been for hundreds of years. And then there are the tourists who went exploring after dusk against the warnings and never returned. Bangor Fort remains one of the most haunted places in India. Whether it is the wrath of a betrayed sorcerer or a kingdom doomed by fate, no one can say. But one thing is certain: when the sun sets behind the Aravalli Hills, Bangor becomes something else entirely. A place forgotten by time, but not by the dead. In the misty heart of County Offaly, Ireland, surrounded by thick woods and rolling green hills, stands Leap Castle, a grey, brooding fortress that has endured centuries of violence, betrayal, and bloodshed. Locals say the walls whisper at night. Some say they remember. Others say they judge. Built in the 13th century by the O'Bannon clan, Leap Castle quickly gained a reputation for darkness. Power struggles, feuds, and murders filled its halls. But the most chilling chapter began when the ruling O'Carroll clan took over in the 1500s, a family infamous for their cruelty and obsession with dominance. Among them were two brothers, both hungry for control. One was a chieftain, the other a priest. During a family mass held in the castle's chapel, the chieftain stormed in and, without hesitation, drove a sword through his brother's heart at the altar. The priest collapsed in front of his congregation, his blood staining the stone floor. From that day on, the room became known as the Bloody Chapel, and the castle never recovered. But the horror didn't stop there. Centuries later, during renovations, workers discovered a hidden shaft behind the chapel, a dungeon. Inside were countless human remains, impaled on wooden spikes. Victims had been dropped in from above, left to die slowly in darkness. Historians believe it was used for execution or as a form of punishment by the O'Carrolls. Some estimate over 150 skeletons were removed from that single pit. Today, Leap Castle is considered one of the most haunted places in Europe. Those who spend the night often report whispers with no source, phantom footsteps, and the heavy, suffocating presence of something deeply ancient and hostile. But the most terrifying spirit is not the murdered priest, nor the tortured victims. It's something older, something inhuman, known only as the elemental. Witnesses describe it as a small, hunched figure, with rotting flesh and a pungent odor of sulfur and decay. It is said to appear when someone disrespects the castle or when its history is disturbed. One paranormal researcher reported encountering the elemental in the Bloody Chapel. He felt an overwhelming wave of dread and a voice inside his head that whispered, "Get out." When he looked up, it was there, glowing red eyes in the shadows, watching. Locals refuse to go near Leap Castle after dark. Those who live nearby say they still hear chanting at night, as if a forgotten ritual is being repeated over and over by the restless dead. Leap Castle is more than haunted. It's cursed by its own past, soaked in generations of suffering. And its walls? They never stop whispering. Tucked deep within the shadowy woods of Connecticut, hidden by overgrowth and forgotten trails, lies a place locals refuse to speak of after nightfall, Dudleytown. Once a small colonial settlement, it now exists only in ruins, overrun by nature and shrouded in a silence that feels unnatural. Dudleytown was founded in the mid-1700s by a handful of families, including descendants of the Dudley family from England. According to legend, the Dudleys were cursed ever since Edmund Dudley, a nobleman, was executed for treason under King Henry VII. The curse was said to follow his bloodline across the ocean, poisoning all who bore the name or settled with them. And in Dudleytown, that curse thrived. What was meant to be a peaceful farming village quickly spiraled into madness and misfortune. Families fell into ruin. People went missing. Several residents committed sudden, unexplained suicides, while others descended into insanity, claiming to see things in the woods, shapes without faces, voices in the wind, and figures watching from the shadows. One of the most well-known stories is that of General Herman Swift, a Revolutionary War hero. After the war, he settled in Dudleytown with his wife. One evening, she was struck by lightning and killed instantly outside their home. Soon after, Swift went mad, spending the rest of his days talking to invisible people and screaming at trees. Another chilling case is that of the Brooks family. After moving in, their once healthy livestock began dying in twisted, unnatural ways. They heard knocking on their walls at night, though no one was ever outside. Within 2 years, 3 of their children were dead, and the parents vanished without a trace. Eventually, the remaining families fled, and Dudleytown was abandoned. Over time, nature reclaimed the village, covering the stone foundations and collapsing cabins. But the curse never lifted. Modern thrill seekers who attempt to visit report strange phenomena. Electronic devices fail, compasses spin uncontrollably, and an overwhelming feeling of being watched sets in the moment one steps onto the land. Many say the air itself feels charged, heavy with something unseen but deeply wrong. Some paranormal investigators claim that Dudleytown isn't haunted by ghosts, but by something far older, a darkness tied to the land itself, a perpetual hex born of blood and betrayal, festering for generations. Today, Dudleytown is off-limits to the public, and local authorities strictly patrol the area, not to preserve history, but to keep people safe, not from the wilderness, but from whatever is still there waiting. Just south of Mexico City, hidden within the twisting canals of Xochimilco, there's an island that no travel guide dares to recommend. To most, it's known as La Isla de las Muñecas, the Island of the Dolls. But to those who've seen it with their own eyes, it's something far more disturbing. The story begins with Don Julian Santana Barrera, a man who left his family in the mid-20th century to live in isolation on the island. According to legend, not long after his arrival, he discovered the body of a young girl floating in the canal. She had drowned under mysterious circumstances, and Julian, deeply religious and superstitious, believed her spirit was restless and trapped. The very next day, a doll floated to the shore. Julian, taking this as a sign, hung the doll from a tree to appease her ghost. But that was only the beginning. More dolls began appearing, tangled in reeds, drifting in the current, hanging from branches. He collected each one, believing the girl's spirit had companions now, or worse, that other spirits were joining her. Over time, Julian turned the entire island into a shrine, hanging dolls on every tree, wall, and pole. Limbless, eyeless, burned, and weather-worn, they stared blankly in every direction. Thousands of them silent and watching. Visitors reported hearing whispers in the night, giggling where no one stood, and dolls that turned their heads when no wind blew. Some said the dolls' eyes would follow them through the jungle paths. Others claimed they were scratched, or that their cameras malfunctioned. Julian became increasingly obsessed. He said the spirits weren't satisfied, that they were talking to him, asking for more. In his later years, he told his nephew that he feared the dolls were possessed, their eyes windows to a different realm. Then, in a twist that still chills locals, Don Julian was found dead, floating in the same spot where he had claimed to find the little girl decades earlier. Some believe his death was a coincidence. Others are convinced it was the final act of the curse he himself nurtured for so many years. Today, the island remains, its trees choked with decaying dolls, their hair tangled, their limbs disjointed, their eyes glassy and hollow. Locals say the island is alive with whispers, and that Julian's spirit now walks among the dolls, still trying to protect the world from whatever he unwittingly invited in. But one thing is certain, you don't go to the island of the dolls at night, not unless you want to become part of the collection. The Winchester Mystery House, located in San Jose, California, is one of the most infamous and perplexing architectural wonders in the United States. Constructed over the course of 38 years, it is a sprawling labyrinth of staircases that lead to nowhere, doors that open into walls, and windows looking into other rooms. But its strange design is no mere eccentricity. It's the legacy of a woman tormented by grief, guilt, and perhaps something far more sinister. After the death of her husband and infant daughter, Sarah Winchester inherited a fortune from the Winchester Repeating Arms Company, a company whose rifles were responsible for thousands of deaths. Sarah became increasingly withdrawn and paranoid, believing that her family was cursed, and that the souls of those killed by Winchester rifles were seeking revenge. Desperate, Sarah sought the help of a Boston medium. According to legend, the medium entered a trance and delivered this message: "You must build a home for the spirits. Never stop building. If you do, you will die." Obeying what she believed was a warning from beyond, Sarah moved to California and began construction on a mansion designed not for comfort, but as a spiritual maze, a trap for restless souls. She employed workers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the building never ceased. Rooms were added and sealed, staircases constructed and torn down, walls built just to be rebuilt elsewhere. But hidden deep within the estate was something far more unsettling than the visible oddities. A subterranean chamber, found long after Sarah's death, behind a bricked-up corridor in the basement. This chamber was not marked on any blueprint and bore no architectural resemblance to the rest of the house. It was a dark stone vault, circular in shape, reinforced with iron and carved with cryptic sigils and protective runes. In the center of the room was a grated pit, about 4 feet wide, descending into darkness. When it was first discovered by a team of restorers in 1924, they reported a horrific stench and a strange, suffocating presence that made some of them physically ill. One worker claimed to hear whispers in a language he couldn't understand, and another insisted he saw a pale, skeletal hand reach through the grate and retreat into the shadows below. Panicked and unnerved, the chamber was quickly resealed. But rumors swirled among the staff, stories of cold spots that moved on their own, tools disappearing, and doors slamming without wind or explanation. Decades later, paranormal researchers studying the blueprints and journals left behind by Sarah Winchester made a shocking discovery. The chamber and the entire architectural layout of the house appeared to be designed around a singular purpose: not to confuse spirits, but to contain one, a central entity, possibly the origin of Sarah's torment. Some of her writings speak of a presence she called the architect beneath, a voice she claimed lived under the house and spoke to her in dreams. According to one note, she believed the house's endless construction was not a distraction, but a ritual, one that needed to be upheld to keep something buried. Security footage in the mansion's lower levels continues to pick up anomalous movement, strange shadows, and unexplained cold surges. Tour guides refuse to go near the sealed room, and some swear that if you stand quietly at the bottom of the stairs at 3 a.m., you'll hear a woman's voice, hoarse and distant, whisper, "Don't stop building, or it will wake." To this day, no one knows what Sarah Winchester truly locked away in that hidden pit. But the structure she left behind still stands, a haunted monument to one woman's battle with guilt, or perhaps her effort to keep something ancient and horrible from ever escaping again. Poveglia Island, located in the Venetian lagoon near Venice, Italy, is widely considered one of the most haunted places on Earth. But the terror that surrounds this island is not just the result of eerie sightings or ghostly whispers. It is a place soaked in history, suffering, and death. In the 14th century, the island was used as a quarantine station during the plague that ravaged Europe. Thousands of infected people, many of them suffering from the bubonic plague, were sent there to die, isolated from the rest of the world. The island became a graveyard, with bodies piled high and buried hastily in mass graves. The stench of death, the sounds of the sick crying for help, and the sight of the dying struggling to survive created an atmosphere of despair that would haunt the island for centuries. After the plague, Poveglia remained largely abandoned for hundreds of years, until the 18th century, when it was repurposed as a mental asylum. Doctors and patients who came to the island were unaware of the darkness already embedded in its soil. But as the years passed, a chilling tale began to unfold within the asylum's walls. The chief physician, an ambitious and ruthless doctor, began conducting disturbing experiments on patients, convinced that he could cure their mental illnesses. He used cruel methods, including lobotomies and other barbaric procedures, that left patients writhing in agony. The doctor was eventually driven mad by the suffering and seemingly haunted by the spirits of those he had harmed. Some say that, in the end, he couldn't handle the guilt and threw himself from the bell tower. His body was found shattered on the ground below, his face twisted in terror. Despite this gruesome ending, the island's dark legacy did not end with the doctor's death. Many who later visited the island described hearing strange, unsettling sounds emanating from the decaying asylum, whispers in the wind, screams, and sometimes the faint toll of a bell, even though the bell tower had been silent for years. Voices of the lost souls, it seemed, still cried out for justice and peace. In recent decades, Poveglia Island has been closed to the public, and the few who have ventured there in secret report unnerving encounters. One visitor described feeling an overwhelming sense of dread as soon as they set foot on the island, as if being watched by unseen eyes. Another claimed to hear the desperate screams of the plague victims rising from the earth, as if the very ground was alive with suffering. Strangely, the most terrifying experience often occurs in the abandoned asylum itself. The crumbling structure, once home to the mentally ill, now stands silent, except for the phantom bell that still rings from the top of the tower on rare occasions, said to toll for anyone who dares to come too close. Nighttime explorers report feeling as if the air itself grows thick, oppressive, almost suffocating, as they venture deeper into the ruins. Some claim that their flashlights flicker and die without explanation, while others have experienced what can only be described as invisible hands brushing against their skin or even pulling at their clothing. One group of adventurers was found unconscious on the island, with no memory of how they got there. They spoke of shadowy figures in the windows of the asylum and strange, unearthly voices calling them by name, leading them into the decaying building. Poveglia Island remains a chilling reminder of the suffering and death that have plagued it for centuries. Its history as a place of quarantine, torture, and despair has left deep scars, and many believe that the spirits of those who perished there still wander the island, trapped in an eternal nightmare. No one knows for sure whether the curse of Poveglia Island is real, or if it is simply a reflection of the unimaginable tragedy it has witnessed. But the island's eerie atmosphere and the countless reports of paranormal encounters suggest that something unexplainable and dark still lingers beneath the surface. Visitors who dare to explore often leave in haste, their nerves shattered by the unseen forces they encounter, and most never return. The only certainty is that Poveglia Island remains forbidden, a place where the dead are never truly at rest, and where the echoes of the past continue to haunt the living. As we leave the cursed grounds behind, remember that some stories never truly end. The walls that whisper, the shadows that move, and the cries from the past are only the beginning. Some places may be abandoned, but the curse they carry lingers long after. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe. The world is full of mysteries, and some of them are best left undisturbed.